This is Gist Nigeria. Coming up on the program, paternity testing. We examine DNA analysis and common layman misconceptions. Also, financing relationships, the evolving culture of bill payment among urban adults, and solution that works. Nigerian graduates develop app that tracks electricity. Plus,
I'm Tolu Adeleke. Check me out.
The midwife teaching expectant fathers how to care for newborns. Welcome to Gist Nigeria from the BBC and Channels Television, where we look at the stories making the rounds on social media. I am Wale Fakile. Our top story this week. If you are on social media, you must have seen recent conversations around DNA testing. The hashtag DNA test has seen different shades of opinions on what couples should do when in doubt of a child's paternity. Though there is no national statistics to represent the scale of paternity fraud in Nigeria, Gist Nigeria's Ajoke Ulodse explores what DNA testing is about and the common misconceptions around it. Have a look.
For weeks now, DNA testing has been a trend on social media. Online and offline conversations and memes like this one have flooded people's timelines, raising questions around DNA testing, its processes and legality. But what is DNA and how crucial is it to our existence? Deoxyribonucleic acid, popularly known as DNA, is you. It's responsible for the color of your eyes, how tall or short you are, that dimple on your cheek, and a lot more than that. Simply put, DNA makes you, you, and me, me. But how did DNA come about? Let's look at the human composition. The human body contains trillions of cells. Each cell houses a nucleus which contains 46 chromosomes. In turn, the chromosome houses your DNA, the genetic code that determines all of your physical traits. Now, this is what happens. The father and mother come together to contribute 23 chromosomes each, making up the 46 chromosomes that determine the DNA. Little wonder many of our physical traits come from our parents, grandparents, maybe even great-grandparents. Your DNA makes you unique, and except you are an identical twin, there's only just one you. And that brings me to DNA testing. Over the years, technology has improved in ways that allow us to find our parents, siblings, identify criminals, and protect our lineage. And that's simply because we are unique. But how is this done?
What we just need to do is to take cells from any part of the body, preferably the cheek cells. Inside of those cells, we will extract the DNA. It's from the DNA now that we analyze to determine paternity.
Now, DNA is useful to us in a number of ways. This unique and peculiar part of us can be used for several things.
It can give you answer a lot of questions beyond just identification, but also some of the risk factors you may have in terms of health.
The acclaimed winner of the 1993 June 12 presidential election, MKO Abiola, was perhaps one of the first set of people to popularize DNA testing in Nigeria. Abiola made it a key ingredient in the execution of his will.
So I think it was more of a way for my father to safeguard himself from, people trying to take advantage of his good nature. I think that was what it was, and I think it's an even playing field, Provide your child, he does a test, he passes, and then he's part of the will. So I think it wasn't I don't think it was malice or anything from his part. I think it was more, understanding the way the world works and trying to leave, all the hard work he had worked for his children.
You probably may have read reports claiming 3 out of 10 Nigerian men are not biological fathers of their children. But according to an independent fact-checking organization, Africa Check, there's no data to support this claim. However, how prevalent is paternity fraud in Nigeria?
At least 4 out of every 10 comes out negative.
Over the years, DNA technology has continued to gain acceptance amongst the populace. But what does the process look like?
There are some loose cells from the mouth, the cheeks. That's all we take. That's just a simple sample collection. It's pain-free, and that's all. From this, we extract the DNA. From this, we amplify, then extract the DNA. It's from that DNA that we we will now analyze. We analyze using some simple genetic markers to determine paternity.
Despite this technology's growing acceptance, access to the test has been limited. Many blame it on the costs, but just how expensive is the DNA test in Nigeria?
When you're talking about just straightforward identification, let's say paternity or maternity, I would say the cost will range between 60,000 and 90,000 naira.
The prices ranges between 100 to 200,000. Now, how many people can afford that?
Now, social media is agog with instructions of genetic samples that can be secretly collected to conduct a DNA test without telling your spouse. Experts, however, say while this is possible, there are consequences.
If we don't have the buccal samples and you're going to bring hair or anything else, that puts it in the forensic environment, which makes it more expensive because isolating DNA from hair or from toothbrush or anything else, it's going to be more rigorous, more laborious and more expensive. So, and then the other issue is, some people come and tell you it's peace of mind, but then they turn around and they want to use it in court. Well, there could be what we call a chain of custody. If I did not collect the DNA sample myself and do the analysis, how am I sure that you did not collect it from the wrong person? And how am I sure that you did not abuse the sample during handling and storage before handing it over to me?
But you may want to ask, does the Nigerian law recognize DNA test as a proof of paternity?
There are existing pieces of legislation already in place that provides for DNA testing to ascertain the paternity of a child.
However, in the case of an adult, things are very different.
The court cannot compel the adult to be tested unless he or she voluntarily agrees to be tested, because it deals with the privacy of that individual.
The Nigerian law presumes that every child born within a wedlock is a product of that marriage. But what would then happen if someone else comes forward to lay claim to this child?
The court will not assist such a person in getting the evidence to prove that he's the father. He must go and find his own evidence. It doesn't work that way. However, if it's the child that wants to seek to know who his parents are, then the court may assist.
If you've decided to conduct a DNA test, you may be concerned about its accuracy. So, what margin of error is a DNA result prone to?
When we do the likelihood ratio, we can tell you with 99.9% certainty. So if it is not 99% and above, it's going to be 0. So the level of accuracy is huge.
However, as accurate and reliable as DNA testing is, there are limitations.
Identical twins will have essentially the same DNA. So those are very rare occasions, and it's possible. So in that instance, it's going to be a challenge to use DNA to determine which of the identical twins actually fathered that child. And in many cases, you're going to have to use other circumstantial investigative methods to determine what actually happened.
It's the issue of quacks in the industry. I prefer government to come out hard and regulate the industry.
But what must be done to harness the full potential of DNA testing in identification, inheritance, immigration, and solving crimes?
Government start planning ahead. That every child that is born today, we run a genetic profile. We keep it. You match the genetic profile with probably the national ID or birth ID of a child that the person has. It's a lifetime DNA, does not change. So here, with that, we'll be able to fight crime.
Whether as a means of identification, forensic evidence, inheritance, or for immigration purposes, the answer you get from a DNA test is usually a yes or a no. Whatever it is, ensure that you're ready for the result. And most importantly, Eradicate every margin of error by visiting an accredited laboratory.
Wow. A lot of education there. What are your thoughts about the legality of DNA testing in Nigeria? Share your thoughts with us on Twitter at GistNigeriaTV.